holy shit, I'm eating 800 more calories a day than I thought. If you just got paid your salary every month, $20 a month missing, $40 a month missing, you're gonna be like, what the hell? Who's taking my money? Why does it just keep going? For a lot of people, that's happening with their calories. We are talking about one of the most fundamental things when it comes to weight management, calories.
Yeah, whether you want to lose weight, maintain your weight, you need to know this stuff. Some people really hate the concept of calorie counting. It's not obsessive. If you've never done it before, how do you even know if you're eating the right amount?
Especially for how distracted we are. It's so easy to not even realise that you put your hand in the pocket like 5 times.
If you've got kids and you pick bits off their plates, you're not going to go back and be like, well, I had 1/2 of a chicken nugget.
People think exercise is the holy grail of burning calories. It's not. Most women are maybe burning between 200 and 500 calories in a workout.
You go to Starbucks, have a drink and a cookie, and that's it gone. It isn't actually that simple. How do you know how much of a calorie deficit? Where have these numbers even come from?
It's not that it's you or you're broken or a calorie deficit doesn't work for you. Like, that is physically impossible. Knowing what to do and actually doing it is very different. Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is the Body Smart Podcast.
We are women's weight loss experts, and we are on a mission to empower you to finally feel in control of your weight and your health.
And on that note, we are talking about one of the most fundamental things when it comes to weight management, which is calories.
Yeah, we have got 10 things you need to know about calories. Whether you want to lose weight, maintain your weight, gain weight, you need to know this stuff.
And even though it can seem like overly simplistic, I think sometimes it's just breaking down the simplicity of it to help anyone understand that in their mind is going to be really useful thing to go over. Just so you know.
And I actually think because it is portrayed as being overly simplistic, people kind of dismiss it and go, well, it can't be that simple.
Yeah.
And I'm going to contradict myself now and say it isn't actually that simple. And that's why we wanted to do a whole episode on it, because it's one thing to say calories in, calories out, but actually there's a lot behind that. And we wanted to explain it today, because when you do understand all of the factors that affect it, it isn't that simple, but it means there's a lot of levers you can pull and you can be a lot more in control than it sounds.
Yeah, like the fundamental principle remains the same, eat less, move more, or calories in versus calories out. But like that as a whole, there's just so many like nuances into every single part that can make it very unique for you. And the more you understand, the better you can navigate things.
Yeah. So I guess we should start with number 1. What is a calorie?
So a calorie is a unit of heat energy. That is at its simplistic term. So sometimes you might see me online, I'll say like a calorie deficit or an energy deficit. And that's because you are burning and spending energy right now. Listen to this podcast, sat down, your body requires energy to keep you alive, to keep your heart pumping, to digest the food that you're having, to just in general, to just keep you moving. Everyone thinks sometimes when we look at that calories out, that calories... it's like how many calories we burn, and people go, oh, it's got to be calories from exercise. No, you're burning calories all the time. You're using energy all the time. So a calorie is a unit of heat energy, and we need calories to fuel us and to keep us alive. Yeah, and
there's like scientific measures of it, that it's basically calorie can heat 1 milliliter of water by 1 degree. Yeah. But we don't need to, nobody really needs to know that, because that is how they determine the calorie content of your food. Like, they will put it in a lab situation and they will test like how much energy can we actually get from this food. But for the purposes of what we use it for, we just need to know it's a unit of measure. And it's complicated by the fact that some countries use kilocalories, so like KCAL.
I went to Australia. I seen that. I was like, what the hell is it? I think is it 4
kilojoules they use?
It's maybe so I can pull this up. It's a multiple. It's like 4 times more. Which was really difficult because all the food packets, I was like, why have I never seen anyone talk about this in Australia?
Yeah. That's why I'm saying, like, it doesn't really matter how many milliliters of water each one, like it doesn't matter. It's a unit of measure. Whether you use kilocalories or kilojoules or joules or calories, you just need to know what you're aiming for.
Yeah. And one thing you do hear people say with calories, sometimes people go, well, not all calories are created equal. This is a thing that you see on social media, like, not all calories are equal, not all calories are equal. It's like, yes, they are. And it's like, that's like saying a mile isn't a mile in distance. Now, if you just walk that mile on flat terrain, it's still a mile. But if you ran a mile up and down sand dunes, it's still a mile. It's just the terrain is different and it's very, very difficult. And you can look at that like some foods are going to require more energy to digest and process and be more satiating, and others aren't. But a calorie is still a calorie. Then how it's used inside the body is different. Just like a mile is always a mile, but what terrain and how fast you do it and everything else, can make the mile a lot more difficult or a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think people say that a calorie is not a calorie, to try and make the point that all foods aren't equal and we shouldn't just measure them by how many calories they contain.
Yeah.
Totally agree. But when it does come down to managing your weight, it kind of does come down to your calories.
It does. Calories are king.
Like, unfortunately, you could just eat takeout, and if you ate the right amount of calories, you could lose weight. Would you feel great? Probably not.
Probably not, no.
Would you be hungry some of the time? Probably yes.
Yeah.
But the fact remains, if you didn't eat enough calories, then you would lose weight. So I think that's where that comes from. Yeah. And like that gets down to point 2, which is about energy balance.
Yes.
And this calories in, calories out thing where people say, oh, well, I'm eating healthy food, or like my calories aren't enough because I'm doing exercise. Can you explain this calories in, calories out model?
Yeah, so calories in is anything that you consume that has a caloric value. So any liquids, any foods, anything that has calories in it, that's going to be your calories in. Your calories out, also known as your metabolism or your total daily energy expenditure, is your basal metabolic rate, which is how many calories you burn at rest. You've then got your exercise, how many calories you burn off exercise activity. You've got your non-exercise activity, that's your like the way I'm talking with my hands now, or your knee fidgets, any non-planned movement that comes into there, and that makes up quite a big chunk of people's energy. And then you've got the thermic effect of food, which is about 5 or 10%, depending on the foods that you eat. And that's what roughly makes up your metabolism. So a huge chunk of it, your basal metabolic rate, is just burnt off you being alive. You just, like, I've said coma calories sometimes, and we keep saying we need to get a better description for this. But like, if you did just lie in bed all day, your body still needs calories to keep your heart pumping. Yeah. To keep your the blood circulating around your body, and to keep you warm, and everything else that's required. So that's what makes out your calories out, and then we've got your calories in. Now, in order to lose weight, you have to create a calorie deficit or an energy deficit, and that's either, again, by consuming fewer calories than your body burns, or well, consuming fewer calories while your body burns, and you can either do that by consuming less calories or increasing your output. Now, with a lot of Body Smart clients, we like to get them to do both. So we try and get them to do a little bit more steps, maybe exercise a little bit more, and then make smarter food choices. So they feel like they're eating loads of food, but they're actually eating fewer overall calories. And that creates that energy deficit or that calorie deficit, and they start losing weight.
Yeah.
And that's like the secret sauce. You want to be able to create that energy deficit and it to feel as easy as possible.
I think that's where the eat less, move more gets like a lot of bashing, because you don't actually need to eat less physically. Like, you don't need to have minuscule portions and starve yourself. And you don't need to move more, like do an hour of cardio every day.
Yeah.
But you need to eat less calories and you need to burn more calories.
Yeah.
So
that's
I think,
fundamental principle.
Yeah, it's another one of those oversimplifications, because actually so many of our clients say, I'm eating more than I've ever eaten in my life. Like, I'm so full, because they're choosing foods that are high thermic effective food. So they can eat a lot more than they would have done if they were choosing processed foods. They're less calorie dense. And also the way that we're getting them to move is a lot of that non-exercise activity. So it's not going to do an hour run every day. It's like just being more active around the house with the kids, or making an effort to do like a walk around the block on your lunch. So it doesn't feel like eat less, move more is bashing you with a stick over their head.
And to be honest, we actually get a lot of feedback from our clients sometimes that's like it feels too easy.
Oh yeah, like I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, and that's because like possibly the past 10 or 20 years have felt so hard and so extreme that when you do something that's like, oh, so I'm just going to go for a walk on my lunch and do 2 exercise sessions a week, and then they start losing weight, and it almost like you can make you freak out, because you're like, it's always been so much more difficult. But again, that's why it's typically not worked for a lot of people for such a long period of time.
And the key with this, like we talk about energy surplus versus energy balance, or however you want to word it, the point of it is trying to find a way that you can continue doing it. And so when people are trying to create a calorie deficit or an energy deficit, often they're trying to create such a big deficit, and they're trying to maybe just do it with food that's just not sustainable. Yep. And so the important thing if you think about it as an energy balance rather than a calorie deficit, I find that easier to visualize. Like, you play with some of the things coming up and some of the things coming down, and it's in balance and it's not constant. Like the ins and the outs can change day to day, week to week, but overall you want that balance to be in your favor.
Yeah, depending on what the goal is. And this like understanding this as a whole, as a principle, becomes really important, not just to lose weight, but then also when you're looking to do a reverse diet, and get yourself back up to like a maintenance calories, and then even maintaining. Or if you go through phases, which you typically will, Christmas vacations, where you might gain a little bit of weight, you're like, oh, I was in a energy surplus, a calorie surplus, and now I just maybe need to go in a little calorie deficit to balance that back out and stay at the weight goal that I'm looking to get to. So understanding this as a whole, and I guess like, yeah, just understanding the principle is just very, very useful because you will consistently go into deficits and maintenance and surpluses throughout your whole life, and not being able to judge yourself too harshly for that, and just understand that you can actually manipulate it in your favor.
So if you're listening to this, it's probably because you want to be in a calorie deficit, though, not a calorie surplus. Yeah. So I think we should probably talk about some of those levers that you can pull or the things that you can tweak to create a calorie deficit.
Yeah. So a calorie deficit or an energy deficit, the easiest place to start with this is to work out what your calorie goal is. So we have a calorie quiz on our website, or you can DM the page, Jaymie Moran, and the quiz, and the team will send you the link. But you'll be able to go through that and fill out a small quiz, and then get your calorie goal. Now, I will say that like all calorie calculators aren't 100% accurate. So you have to take every calorie calculator you ever do with a pinch of salt. And sometimes people see the results on there and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you've recommended me to be on such low calories or such few calories on some of these results that they get. But you just have to remember that if that's the case, it's likely because you're very inactive, or you're very light, or very short. Now, this just like makes sense. Like larger people need more calories. That's typically why men need more calories. Heavier people need more calories, and people who are more active, again, they need more calories. All this like makes logical sense. And if you're getting like a super low calorie goal, it is probably because you're light, shorter, a woman, and not very active. And that's just what it comes down to. So the things that you can control there more easily could possibly be like your activity. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are doing 2,000-3,000 steps. Being able to just take that up to 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even a little bit more can have a huge impact on your calorie expenditure. What does that mean? It means you can now lose weight on a higher calorie intake.
I think that's really important to hammer home because when you get that calorie result, it doesn't mean like that's it, it's fixed. Let's say it comes out at 1,200 calories because you're only 5 foot and you don't do much activity. That doesn't mean you can only ever eat 1,200 calories or you'll gain weight.
Yeah.
It means if you continue with your lifestyle the way it is, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
But as you said, there are options. So I'd always encourage people to like have a play around, go back through it and say, what would happen if I decided to work out 3 times a week? What would happen if I up my steps? And then you might find a number that you're more happy with, and it's up to you to decide that balance that works for you. Like, okay, I'm prepared to do 3 workouts a week, and that means I can eat this much or more steps. It's not fixed.
It's not fixed. And also, we have to just take into account as well sometimes is that like, and a lot of people won't view it like this. If you've struggled to lose weight your whole life, when you see a low number, you just think, well, that's the number I'm going to have to be on for the rest of my life. And that isn't the case. Like a calorie deficit or losing weight should always be seen as a season. And for some people, that might be a couple of months. And for some people, that might be a couple of years. But it still should be a season where you go through a period of time where you're in restriction, because that's what a calorie deficit is. It is restriction of what your maintenance calories is. And then going back up to a calorie maintenance. So it is just like the way, and I always try and use this analogy, if you were saving up for a house and the down payment on a house, you would put money aside from your savings every month or from your salary every month until you have enough money to purchase that house. It's the exact same of when you're trying to be in a calorie deficit. You've got your maintenance calories, and you're having to spend less than that to put some away so your body uses that energy that you've got, which is stored fat, till you get to your goal, and then you can go back up to maintenance calories, just like the way if you were putting, say, $500 or £500 away out of your salary, you can go back up to your normal salary and spend differently at that point.
Yeah, and it is really important to remember, if you had 500 extra calories a day forever, once you get to your goal, that it's going to feel so easy. And if you've been trying to lose weight for so long, you probably have been trying to eat low calories for a very long time. You probably can't even imagine like having an extra 2,500 calories a week and not gaining weight. So it's sometimes really nice to keep that in the back of your mind. If you're finding it hard to be in a calorie deficit, keep that in the back of your mind. Like the end game is not to do this forever. Like for example, my maintenance calories are well over 2,000, like 2,300. That is a lot of food. Whereas if I went on the calorie calculator and I put in I wanted to like lose a bunch of weight before a holiday or something, it would probably tell me to eat like 1,500 calories, maybe a little bit more. if I did that and then went up to 2,300, oh my gosh.
What is that like? Yeah, it's a huge percentage.
It's like a whole extra meal and a dessert.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you are cutting that back whilst you're in this season of fat loss, but just keep that in your sights. At the end of it, there is an end, and you go back to being able to maintain at a higher amount. And
I think that, like, if, like we said, like if you've always gone through these periods of like being on a diet and then like just like reverting back to quote unquote whatever normal is for you, and like being on a diet, like we're talking about like a maintenance calorie intake can feel like really foreign and far away. But like as a principle, like that is where you need to get to. And people who just walk around maintaining the weight that they are all the time, or just found that homeostasis and maintenance phase for them.
Yeah. So things that you can do to adjust your calorie intake then to create that calorie deficit. Yeah. Obviously, we've talked about a calorie isn't a calorie, is a calorie. But your food choices do make a really big impact on how easy it is to be in a calorie deficit. Because you could literally just eat less and have smaller portions. And some people do like to do that. They like to just keep the same exact types of food and just eat a little bit less. And if you're eating a generally balanced diet, actually that can work. But if you're not already prioritizing protein and whole foods and high fiber, you're probably going to find you're a bit hungry if you physically just eat less.
Yeah.
So we would always say, like, look at having 25 to 30 grams of protein with every meal. So if you're not sure what that looks like, around a palm-sized portion of protein, maybe 1.5 palm sizes is about right for most women with each meal. And looking at your fiber, so veggies, like 2 fistfuls of veggies with each meal, that's just going to really improve your thermic effect of food. So how many calories you're burning each time you eat. And also you're physically going to be eating quite a lot more food than if you did that old school method of just eat less.
Yeah, it's if you were to just look at like trying to, you know, like get 25 to 30 grams of protein, veggies and fiber with every meal, like you will just feel full, like a lot more full all the time through the day. And it just makes the process of like battling hunger a lot easier as you go through the deficit. But yeah, we've spoken about this a lot of times. Like if you can get like 80% of the foods that you eat to be from like whole, nutrient dense, minimally processed foods or lean proteins, like you'll naturally just find like your body will just feel more satiated all the time.
Yeah.
And we're not the people that you see online that go, you need to eat 100% clean or 100% healthy. We try not to label foods, but having, you know, the majority of your diet come from these types of food sources will just fix so much for so many people when it comes to trying to not just lose weight, but also maintain like a healthy lifestyle.
And the other thing whilst we're talking about that is the kind of missell of low calorie foods, because there's so many things. If you go out there into the shops that are like 100 calorie packet of whatever, and you pick it up and it's like this like lightweight little bag of chips or like dried fruit or something, and you're like, no shit, it's only 100 calories. There's like nothing in there. But if you were to say go and have an apple and a handful of almonds, I mean, maybe it doesn't sound as exciting as like some salty crisps, but that's going to be 100 calories and it's going to keep you full and it is going to feel more satisfying.
Definitely.
So then there's a whole industry out there trying to sell to you of like low calorie, high protein, all this stuff all over the packaging. But actually, if you just eat whole foods, they are that already.
Yeah, they are. I done that with, I remember ages ago, bought like a fiber one bars.
Oh, yeah.
And when I got them, it wasn't a bar, it was just like a little square.
A bite.
Yeah, it was like a bite, and then I ate like 5 of them. And I was like, well, that was pointless. You know what I mean? It was just, exactly just got bought into like the low calorie marketing of them. And it would have just been better having something, like you said there, like a piece of fruit and some nuts instead.
Yeah. Okay, so portion control is one option. Looking at the types of food that you eat is another option. The other thing that some people use to help like manage their calorie intake is fasting. So it doesn't work because it's fasting. It works because if you cut a meal out, it's easier to eat less food over the whole course of the day.
It's a strategy that can help some people adhere to the principle, which is calorie deficit. So all you're doing is you're creating a rule, and rules aren't the worst, you know what I mean? Having certain rules, like people probably have them in all different, you know, assets of their life or whatever it is. But like creating a food rule can be useful. It just depends whether it starts to like control you to an extent. So some people, typically people who do fasting, will have like 12-8, you know, they start eating at 12, they finish at 8, or they might do 11-7. And it basically means they're like fasting for 16 hours and then they're eating for 8 hours. But again, if you fast for 23 hours and then eat for 1 hour, but eat more calories in that 1 hour that you blow your calorie intake out the window. Not only can you not lose weight, you can gain weight. So it still comes down to the fundamental principle. But for some people, they might actually just find that as quite an easy strategy to follow. So in the morning, you might just drink a bit more water, some sparkling water. Some people have black tea, black coffee. And then you have your first meal of the day, your breakfast, breaking the fast, is at like 11, 12 p.m. And for some people, they prefer that. They rather have like a really larger lunch, like with more calories in. They feel more satiated than a really large dinner. And that works, for some people who are busy in the morning, rush out. For others, they couldn't think of anything worse. You feel, you.
However, I actually do, in effect, do a kind of fasting, but do it the other way around, because my son eats at like 5 o'clock, and I'm a big believer in like eating together at the table. So I eat at 5 o'clock, and then I don't eat after that.
Okay.
So I kind of do it just the other way around.
Yeah, everyone fasts to some extent. You know what I mean? Because there will be a point at the end of the day where you stop having anything with calories in, and then again you'll sleep and then have something at some point in the morning or the next day. So everyone will fast. It's just whether you decide to open that window. So right now you might go, oh, it is 9 hours that I'm actually not eating for from when I finish eating and then eat the next day. Again, you don't have to go for a hard rule of 16 hours. You might want to take that to 12 hours or 13 hours or 14 hours. Like when did you eat this morning?
Well, I was getting on the train early, so still early.
So when would you typically
eat? So typically I'd eat at like 7:30. So I wouldn't eat from 5:30ish to like 7:30.
So you're doing
like
14
hours.
Yeah, 14 and a half hours.
Yeah.
And for some people, like that might be fine. That might be like a good window for you, but you might want to push it to 15 or 16. Yeah. People who say...
But you don't need to. That's the point,
You don't need to. No, fasting isn't the holy grail. And I think some people who go on this, like, again, really strict, obsessive, like 16-8, then it's like, well, on a Saturday morning, you know what? I want to have breakfast with my partner and my kids. Yeah. I'm not now because I'm going to stick to this hard and fast. And it's like, no, you don't eat the damn eggs. You know what I mean?
And especially if, I'm one of those people, if I am hungry and I'm telling myself I can't eat, then the minute I do eat, I just eat so much. Yeah. It just backfires for me. So if you're one of those people where having rules doesn't actually serve you, you don't need them.
Yeah.
So just give it a go if you want to give it a go, but it's not a magic fix.
Yeah. I would say, because a lot of people do ask about fasting sometimes and say they are. If you are curious, my go-to advice on this is always give it a try for 2 weeks. It'll take a couple of days for like your circadian rhythm to like adjust to that like new eating windows. Give it a go for 2 weeks and see how you get on. And if you don't like it, just go back to what you were doing. And if you do like it, then maybe you found another strategy in your toolkit that you can use.
Yeah, so that's your options to kind of reduce your calorie intake. Actually, one thing that we should mention, which we haven't, is real quick wins for reducing calorie intake is look at all the things that you don't think of when you think about food. So what do you think of your cooking oil? Do you think of the sugar in your tea or your coffee? Do you
milk.
think milk? Yeah. Creamer is a huge one that catches clients out. Things like vitamin gummies, like all of these things that you don't think of as food, if you add them up over the day, they can be 200, 300, 400 calories. Yeah. And so that is a huge area where you can cut down your calorie intake without actually feeling like you're eating less food.
Yeah, which is like a super quick win. It's like, you've just basically made, again, smarter choices, more mindful around what you're having, and just being more aware of the calories that you're having. Because then if that happens, you have you don't even notice or feel like you're eating less and you start losing weight. It's like, that's the ultimate hack. Like, you're just like, oh, I'm just doing the same stuff, but I'm losing weight. Yeah. It's like, great.
Not even eating less. Yeah. So that's reducing your calorie intake. Then obviously the other way to create a calorie deficit is to increase your calorie output. Yeah. So your energy burn.
I will say on this, it's much harder to burn more calories than it is to just simply reduce calories. And that's something to be mindful of. When you see these things like, it's taken me, I've had to run at a fast pace for an hour to burn an 800 calorie cookie. It's like, yeah, this is how people get this patterns of disordered eating, because it's just so difficult and you have to do so much output to really increase your calorie intake. However, there are many like quick wins that people can have that can actually get them burning a lot more calories than they are with like simpler sort of changes to make. The first is going to be your steps. If you're doing less than 8,000 or fewer than 8,000 steps a day, that is a great place to get to start to, and trying to get that up to 8,000 a day. At 8,000 a day, 7 days a week, it's just going to increase your calorie intake.
Or instead of 8 times 7, it could just be an average of 56 over the week, right?
Yeah, and but it does from a health standpoint. Not talking about weight loss here. it is good to be moving at least that much every single day. So, trying to factor that into your lifestyle, whether that's when you put the kettle on, you do a couple of laps around your kitchen, whether that's when you take a phone call, you walk around your house, whether you get like a walking treadmill for your house when you work on your desk and walk, do standing desk, factoring and booking walks into your day and into your week. It all makes a significant difference. Parking at the back of the car park, so you just walk an extra. These are all easy things that you can hopefully do to get you to 8,000. That's a great place to start, just for burning more calories. The next is going to be doing some form of exercise, at least sort of 2 to 3 times a week. That's going to make a difference, but not as much as people think. People think exercise is this holy grail of burning calories. It's not. Most women are maybe burning between 200 and 500 calories in a workout. So at the bottom part on 3 workouts a week, that's 600 calories. Now, if you think you could eat 600 calories in a 3-bite donut.
In a snack.
Yeah.
Like you go to Starbucks and have a drink and a cookie and that's it gone.
That could be 3 workouts for someone who's not working out super intense and is, as we said before, is possibly shorter, lighter in a workout. Someone who's doing a more intense workout, 500 calories, 600 calories, what's that, 1,100 calories? Again, it's still like, it could easily be, gone in. So the best way you look at that is like you want to look at those calories that you would burn for some people are like, oh, can I add them onto that day? No, you want to look at when we're looking at your metabolism, you kind of divide that by 7. So if you were to do 1,500 calories of workouts, you're going to divide that by 7. What's that like?
But you don't need to do the maths if you
don't
go
need
to the calorie calculator.
You can just use the calorie calculator. Yeah, you certainly can.
Yeah.
And then the last one is just going to be having more whole foods. So your body requires around 50% more energy just to digest more whole foods and things that are minimally processed. So just by doing that, your body will burn more calories of the food choices that you're making and getting enough protein in your diet. So again, like getting your steps up to 8K, exercising regularly, and having more whole foods and protein in your diet. They're going to be some of the easy bedrock stuff to do to get your metabolism burning more and more calories.
Yeah, and I think the double win there is the whole foods and the protein because it ticks both boxes.
Yeah, and it's going to keep you a hell of a lot more satiated.
Yeah.
So it's you're going to burn more calories and feel less hungry. It's like win-win.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we know how to make a calorie deficit. Now, how do you know how much of a calorie deficit if you don't use the calorie quiz? Or maybe you've done the calorie quiz and you're like, where have these numbers even come from?
Yeah. So this is a good question because some people, talk about, oh, this is too low or this is too high. Or I've seen, hey, this girl on Instagram is eating 2,300 calories a day and losing weight. I should be able to eat 2,300 calories a day and lose weight. And it's like, no, that lady is 24 years old, works out 7 days a week, does 15,000 steps, like doesn't work 50 hours a week in an office job and doesn't have kids. It's just like their lifestyle is very different to you that they can lose weight on that amount of calories. And maybe they've got a lot of muscle. And I think that's, again, this whole like comparison is the thief of joy, but like comparison around other people losing weight or how many calories other people can lose weight on can really set you up for failure. So we typically try to get clients anywhere between a 250 calorie a day deficit and as high, I would say, as around 1,000 calorie a day deficit. We typically never go lower than anybody's basal metabolic rate, BMR, which on most calorie quizzes, you can just see what your BMR calories would be.
Yeah.
And again, that's going to vary and dependent on how much weight that client's got to lose, how fast they want to go, which we'll actually manage because fast is relative. I'll actually spend a bit of time on this just right now because I think it's important. Fast is relative. We've had clients lose 40 pounds, get to their ultimate weight loss goal and go, oh yeah, I did it. I did it slowly. I'm like, what do you mean you did it slowly? Because their perception is, well, I did it slowly. I lost a pound a week for 40 weeks. And it's like, well, why was that slow? And it's like, well, because in the past I've lost like 2 pounds a week or 3 pounds a week.
Or like 10 pounds in week one.
Yeah, and then I've lost like 5, and it's like, yeah, but you never were able to get to your weight loss goal. Never mind maintain it. So I was like, and you just kept ending up back at square one. So that was actually the slowest way. You losing a pound a week, and it's a good reframe. You losing a pound a week or half a pound a week, and you actually get to your goal is the fastest way. So I think the reframe of what's fast and what's slow is really important just for anyone to kind of ground themselves. Everybody wants to get to their goals faster in a short space of time. But sometimes that like lack of patience is actually what's making your journey the slowest it could be. Or
it's
even
false economy, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah.
I think it's also important to come back to what you said about that range of a deficit of like, it could be anything between 250 to 1,000 calories because there is no correct amount either. It depends on what's realistic for your lifestyle, like what you think is going to be something you could keep up for the amount of time to reach your goal, what else you've got going on in your life. And like you said, how much you've got to lose. Because if I had a client who was 60 kilos, like 130 odd pounds, there isn't really the room to give them 1,000 calorie deficit. Not if I want them to eat enough food to actually nourish their body.
Unless they've done 15,000 steps a day because they went on 3 dog walks and had some sort of manual job. And like that's it. You have to look at not only is the person's like height and weight, but the components of how active they are. Like on the flip side of that, like you just said, if you've got somebody who's 60 kilos, 130 pounds, is like 5'1" and not active at all, like they're gonna have to be on lower calories unless we increase their output to see the same sort of success. And again, that's where you've just got to be very mindful of, you know, like, oh, well, why are they on 1,800 calories and losing weight? It's like, well, they're not you know what I mean? And it's like you have to work with the cards you dealt and keep putting one foot in front of the other to be in the best situation that you can be in. I
think the other thing we should talk about as well, because you mentioned it at the beginning of this segment, was about not going below BMR, because that is something kind of out of principle we don't do. And it's not necessarily because you're going to damage your health or your metabolism or whatever if you eat under your BMR, because your body, if we think about the energy concept that we're covering here, your body will find that energy from somewhere. And that's the whole point of a calorie deficit. So if you don't eat enough to meet your basal metabolic / energy needs, your body will get it from your fat stores. So you might be listening thinking, hey, that's a win. I'm going to go below my BMR. However, the reason that we don't do it is more to do with the fact it's going to be very difficult to eat enough calories that contain enough goodness for you to feel good, to maintain your muscle mass, to like have enough energy to do the exercise that you're supposed to be doing to create this energy deficit. So it's not necessarily that like it's a red line that no one should ever cross, but how you go about weight loss is super important.
And so it just doesn't suck as well. Like, don't get me wrong, like you can go below your BMR, but like, and I've done it in the past. I've done it like before, like a holiday and stuff. I've done like super aggressive dieting, but you bet I am hungry all day. I am thinking about food all the time. It has an impact on my cognition. You know what I mean? Like the second I'm not like really focused on work, I'm thinking about food. So, and it's like that for a lot of people just isn't going to be something that they're going to be able to stick at for a long enough period of time to get to the goal. And often when you go in that restrictive as well, it also doesn't teach you that much because you're just like as low as possible. So BMR, you know, staying above that, you really don't want it. Like it's already more difficult for women in terms of malnourishment being a thing because of the fewer calories. So if a guy could diet on 2,200 calories and a woman has to diet on 1,200 calories, that's overall less food, that's overall less nutrients, less fiber, less minerals. So it's easier to become malnourished. You start pushing that boat further, 500 calories a day, 600 calories a day, 700 calories a day. Like you think you're going to be able to get enough nourishment in that. And that's why on our calorie quiz, anytime it does go below 1,200, there is a warning, which is like, speak with a healthcare professional about, if this is something that you're considering. And that's mainly because if we had somebody on really low calories, we would make a point that they're getting a lot of nutrients and minerals from either their food choices or from supplements to make sure that they're going to be in the healthiest place possible while being on lower calories.
And that kind of ties into one of those common myths around like, oh, if you just eat 1,200 calories, you'll lose weight. It is like, probably most people would lose weight. But what else are you going to lose along with it? Like your sanity for one, but your energy levels, your desire to continue. Like there are plans out there you can print off the internet of 1,200 calorie diets. That doesn't mean that's what you need to do. And on the flip side of that, if you're like, well, everything on packet says the average recommended intake for women is 2,000 calories. So I'll just like take 500 off that. And then that should make I lose weight. Again, that isn't necessarily accurate for you either. So don't listen to anything generic. And even on your smartwatch might tell you that you burn 2,600 calories a day. Like they can be wildly out. And the only thing that's going to tell you if you're in a calorie deficit or not is you. Your body will tell you. If you eat a certain amount of calories for a week and over that week your weight stays the same-ish, you're in an energy balance. If you eat like a little bit less and your weight goes down, you're in an energy deficit. So these numbers are all just like a start point, and then your body is the trial and error kind of output that tells you whether you need to change things or not.
And that's where you have to really try to just like remove the emotion around what's happening, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm in a calorie deficit and not losing weight. And it's like that is physically impossible. And it's not that like it's you, or you're broken, or a calorie deficit doesn't work for you. Like, a calorie deficit is the principle. If it wasn't true, like, people wouldn't die from like anorexia or starvation, because that's what happens. They're in such an energy deficit or calorie deficit for such a long period of time. Their body eats away at so much of their muscle and fat that it eventually kills them. Like, that's what happens with starvation. If like an energy deficit or calorie deficit wasn't the case, like, these people wouldn't become ill and die. And there is actually a whole study on this, the Minnesota experiment, which is where I think it was in the Second World War, they literally starved conscientious objectors to see what happened if we starve people. Yeah, and they lost huge amounts of weight, ridiculous unsurprisingly. Amounts. Yeah. So it's what can, and I don't want to go too much into this, what can happen if your body can try to like metabolically adapt, so you'll move a little bit less to kind of counterbalance that back out. But like, that is what happens. And if you're not losing weight, it means you're not in a calorie deficit, and that's okay. Then that just means it's time to get curious around what you're doing. Do you need to increase your activity? Do you need to look more meticulously at what you're eating to make sure that you can start to put that energy balance and calorie balance in the way that you want, so you are actually in a deficit and start to see the scales move? Because most people, 99% of people, because we've coached everyone from women who have had polycystic ovaries to going through menopause to prenatal, postnatal, like, we've coached everyone and being able to get them results. And you just often have to just go a level deeper and go a level deeper and go a level deeper and get more curious without trying your best not to be emotional about it, and you will 1000% be able to get the results you want.
Are you ready to lose 30 to 60 pounds in under 6 months without restrictive diets, countless hours exercising, or any guesswork? Well, we help women over 30 do exactly that. Lose weight guaranteed. And 5 to 10 pounds a month is the average weight loss. And that's not a cherry pick statistic. That is the average. Your weight loss results are 100% guaranteed. You will lose unwanted body fat. So apply at bodysmartfitness.com. That's bodysmartfitness.com, but only if you're a woman over 30 and want to lose 30 to 60 pounds.
You know what else I think is really key? Letting go of the number. Because people say, I'm in a calorie deficit of 1,400 calories and I'm not losing weight. You're probably not eating 1,400 calories if you're not losing weight. But the 1,400 is just a number. Like, to go back to the first point, it's just this made up concept of measuring energy. Yep. So if I told you were eating like 1,900 calories and not losing weight, would you be upset? No. Yeah. You'd be like, yeah, fair. So like, just take the number out of it. Just be like, right, what I'm doing right now is not leading to weight loss. So I need to change something. Yep. Just forget the numbers. And it is so freeing. It is such a difficult, like, mindset hurdle to jump, because so many of us have spent years trying to get these numbers right. Yeah. And this number equals the number on the scale. So if I just do this, this should equal this. But forget it. Like, honestly, if it's not working, it's not working. Yeah. So let's do something else.
Yeah, 1,000%.
So on that note then, deficits in theory, simple. Yes. But there's like a million diets out there. What's the best one for a calorie deficit?
So there is all diets that have got you to lose weight in the past are just strategies that adhere to the principle. So, if you were to look at like Weight Watchers or Slimming World or a ketogenic diet or Atkins or a fasting diet, anything that got you to lose weight was just a strategy that got you to adhere to the principle, which was a calorie or energy deficit. What is the best diet for you? There's some bedrocks that we've spoken about already, which are really important for anyone. So making sure you're getting like 80% nutrient-dense, minimally processed whole foods definitely helps from a health standpoint and to make dieting easier. But it varies. Like, there's no like specific or special foods. It's got to be like what works for you. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's also no demon foods either in terms of food groups. Yeah. So like, cutting carbs is not the magic answer. Going low fat is not the magic answer. There's a Harvard study that shows that literally any of the options of cutting out food groups all resulted in the same result as somebody who just ate a balanced diet and had a calorie deficit.
Yeah, like, and I would say most, if not all of our clients, every week probably indulge in chocolate and ice cream and eat carbohydrates all the time and still get consistent results because they adhere to the principle. What I will say is that a diet is personal. So like, what I like and what Stacey likes, which is broccoli and fish for breakfast. is very different, and that's okay. Like, there's no judgment.
Says
on that.
the man who eats 6 eggs.
Exactly. Here we go. All right. And you know, like you look at all different cultures around the world. People eat lots of different foods at all different times.
Do you know what? I loved living in Asia because they have like dim sum for breakfast, curry for breakfast. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm like in heaven.
Yeah. So if you can start to just look at it like that, like, oh, these like traditional breakfast foods or these traditional meals need to be what's had, like that isn't the case. Like, the best diet is the one that you enjoy, it's best for your health markers, and also adheres to the principle and the goal that you're looking for. Now, are there certain foods that are like a lot more satiating than others, and you can be smart with your calories? Yes, I think that just kind of just comes back to that principle of like 80% whole foods. Now, there are certain foods, we had an old infographic on this, like they're more satiating than others. I think like potatoes are like the most satiating food. And if you are someone that's like struggling a lot with hunger, you can start to get even more curious with this and be like, right, how can I have the highest satiating foods in my diet and all these meals? And it can make hunger as manageable as possible.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, actually, because people demonize carbs. But if you went and got a bag of potatoes and weighed out like how many calories is 200 calories of potatoes, you'd be surprised how much potato you could eat. You'd have like nearly half a plate of potatoes. Yeah. Like, admittedly, not deep fried, but if you were just gonna like roast them up with some spray oil, they'd be delicious, and you'd be super full.
Yeah, that, and then you go again like 200 calories or 150 calories of vegetables, and then like 200 calories of meat or some sort of protein. It's a big meal. You know what I mean? For like 550 calories, you will be full of having that. And you have a glass of water with it as well.
But to come back to the point of like which diet is best, something that we hear all the time from clients, and they put it in like all their feedback is, I love that I'm not on a diet. And that's one of the most freeing things. If you can get your head around this whole concept of a calorie deficit, you're not on a diet. You're literally just managing your energy intake and your energy output. Yeah. So there's no rules. There's no like, oh, I can't have cake because I'm on a diet. You can have cake. If it fits in your calories today, have your cake. If it doesn't fit in your calories today, we'll adjust tomorrow's calories a little bit.
Yeah, and we'll have clients who go, hey, like on Friday I'm going to get takeout, so I'm just going to eat a little bit less on Thursday, maybe just like fast in the morning on Friday, and then have a pizza on Friday night. And because they've started to get the hang of energy balance and calorie understanding, there's no stress about that, like food stress. If you told them to do that in week one, they'd be like, what the hell, you told me to eat pizza on Friday? But after you've done that for like a couple of weeks, a couple of months, you start to just understand it because you've got the evidence of like, hey, I've been losing weight consistently. I understand this a lot more. And now you're eating a pizza on a Friday night and have eaten chocolate that week and carbohydrates and being able to be really freeing with your food choices, and you're seeing results. And it's like, this is...
Yeah, it's actually something that I have had to force people to do.
Yeah.
Because people get in the diet mindset and they're seeing progress and they're being, like, in inverted commas, really good. And they're like hitting everything, like every day their calories are on point, their protein is on point. And I'm like, this is great, but this isn't real life. Like, you are not going to do this for the next 20 years. So this week you're getting a takeout. And they're like, what? But if you don't practice being flexible, then it is just another diet. And the whole point is you can't stick to a diet forever, but you can learn how to manage your food forever.
Yeah, and that's where you want to be. Like a huge word we used to always try and we'd audit clients all the time. We'd be asking all these questions. And a big word that kept coming back was freedom. Like freedom. And it's just because when you've felt like, when you've had like 10 or 20 or 30 years of food just feeling like it controls you in so many different ways, and then you all of a sudden get it and feel free to be and empowered to make the choices that you want with your food, it's liberating in so many ways, because food is a huge part of all of our lives, and to feel in control of that is 1,000% liberating. In control in a way that like nourishes your body, nourishes your family time, your taste buds, everything else that it comes with. It's a great place to be.
Yeah. And actually that ties into like understanding a calorie is not a calorie, and the next point that I want to cover, which is about macros, because people often talk about calorie counting or macro counting. We're not going to go into it in great depth because there's a lot to cover, but effectively calories all sit under either a fat, a carbohydrate, or a protein macronutrient. Yeah. So it's just a way of dividing up the types of food you have. And you will have heard like fats and carbs and protein. You would have heard those words banded around. It's just the types of molecule that are in your food. So they are important because they do different things in your body. But it's not something that you need to get super focused on, apart from, like we always say, focus on your protein because it keeps you full. It helps maintain your muscle density. But you don't need to worry about like having the perfect balance of fats and carbs, or, you know, worrying about being under 50 grams of carbs a day. Any of that stuff you don't need to do if what you want to do is lose weight. However, coming back to what you were just saying about like feeling free and feeling in control of what your food does for your body, when you get a bit further down the line, you might feel like, do you know what? I have more energy when I eat more carbs, or, oh, I actually feel more full when I eat more fats. And it is that awareness thing. It's not something you need to know to lose weight, but as you start to learn more about your food, it means your food can do more for you.
Yeah, you want to be making informed choices because you're self-aware around how you react to food. And this isn't just like saying like protein, carbs and fats. It can just be certain foods. Like, did you say like when you have apples now, they just...
Oh yeah, they bloat me out awful.
Yeah, they just, you know, and so that's just like an awareness of a certain food. And you're like, okay, it's not like there's anything wrong with apples, but for you, not the best food choice to make. And you can have this, you can keep going like, oh, when I eat loads of carbs, like I just feel like I'm in a bit of a food coma afterwards and I don't really want to do much. So, okay, so is that how you want to feel on a Tuesday afternoon? No. Okay, so maybe we're going to like manage the amount of carbohydrates you have in maybe your breakfast and lunch. And it's like, yeah, so you just are able to keep making more informed choices. But yeah, when it comes to losing weight, macro counting is just a more in-depth way of calorie counting. Like if you tracked your food for a day and you've never tracked food before, you've never heard of macros, and you put it into MyFitnessPal and you just ate how you normally did, you would have a calorie number that you get off the back of it. You could go into the nutrients tab on MyFitnessPal and it would just have a breakdown of the protein, carbs and fats, because all calories break down into those three macronutrients. And again, starting to calories and protein is like a great place to start. And if you want to start looking more under the microscope with your food, you can start to look at a split of protein, carbs and fats. And it does make a difference. You know, if you just add 2,000 calories of all carbs and all fats, like you're not going to look and feel your best, you know.
And it's probably not going to keep you feeling great. Like you're not going to be full all the time because carbs tend to have a bit of a sugar spike and crash. Yeah,
so then if you start to break that down where you go, right, okay, I'm going to now, get more protein in your diet. Now you have a better breakdown of macronutrients. And then again, it does start to go further and further the more you get into it. But I think to begin with, people focus on, and this isn't even a macronutrients because it's a part of carbohydrates, but I really feel like the big rocks that people would want to focus on in the beginning would be calories, like your overall calorie intake, because calories are going to be king for losing weight. Getting enough protein in your diet, because it's just most women are not, especially for breakfast, and fiber. And fiber is a carbohydrate. They would be some of the three big ones. After that, the actual next one, which again is not even a macronutrient, would probably be sugar. They're my kind of top four things that I look for when people are saying like my hunger's out of control, or I want to eat all the time. They're the four things that I'm typically looking at.
But you don't need to stress about getting a perfect macro balance, or like if you see people giving out macro-based plans, it's just not a necessary level of complication for most people. Like if you have lost weight and you're trying to lose maybe the last 10 pounds, or you want to compete, or you're an athlete, yes. But if you've got like 40 pounds to lose and you just want to like start seeing progress, don't stress over it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we've talked about what you're eating and the fact you need to know that you're eating in a calorie deficit, which is why we're going to have to bring up the subject of tracking accurately. And this is like a standalone point in itself, because some people really hate the concept of calorie counting, tracking their food, logging your food, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, if you don't know what your energy intake is, how are you going to be in control of that energy balance?
And again, just I think sometimes taking things back to like money makes things like really like logical in people's minds. If you just got paid your salary every month and $20 went missing, $40 went missing, $60 went, and you're like, you're not going to look at that and be like, who's taking my money? Why does it just keep going? You're going to be like, what the hell? Like you're going to look at that and be like, you will be emotional about it. Like, why am I just randomly losing all this like money that I've worked really hard to get? And for a lot of people, that's happening with like their calories. There's a unawareness of how you're spending your calories. I mean, that causes a frustration that you don't have as much money as you want, or as many calories as you do, because you're unaware of you spending them. So tracking food and learning to track food accurately is just a skill. And the faster you can just like kind of remove the emotion and just learn the skill, the easier this all gets, because it's somewhere between like 50 and 100% that people are out So like you're eating 1,500 calories, you're eating 22 to 3,000.
Yeah.
And people like are like, there's no way I'm eating that much. And it's like the amount of times we've got gone under the microscope with people and like looked at this and like, holy shit, I'm eating 800 more calories a day than I thought.
And let's just give some examples of how easy it is to do though, because if you're not weighing your food, that's a huge one. So if you say, right, let's start with breakfast. I'm going to have this breakfast cereal. Cool. It says it's 120 calories per serving. You pour out your bowl, you pour out your milk, you have your breakfast and you track it. Did you weigh that? Probably not. If you didn't, what you consider a serving might be double or even triple
or more.
What the box says as a serving. And if we're talking about something like, I don't know, Weetabix, it's probably not going to make that much difference. If we're talking about something like granola, it can be hundreds of calories. Yeah. That's just breakfast.
Well, I've shared this before about Steph. So when Steph first became one of my clients, she didn't realize she was eating 1,100 calories of granola. 1,100 calories every day. Yeah, and it was like a ridiculous amount of sugar as well. I was like, how have you still got not one filling? But like that's what, so literally just one swap in breakfast, and she was like, just felt just as full, just as satiated, but we had like a 400 calorie breakfast instead of 1,100. Like that singular thing that she was just doing unconsciously, 700-800 calories. Yeah. And again, how did we find that out? She weighed the food, she weighed the portion of granola, she weighed the milk, and then managed to see like this. Like I remember looking at it on her phone, like. It's just a joke, you know what I mean?
But you know, she had to actually track that accurately in the first place to be aware. And I think sometimes it's a bit of a mental resistance of like, I shouldn't have to weigh my food. This is obsessive. It's actually educational. It's not obsessive. If you've never done it before, how do you even know? How do you even know if you're eating the right amount? And I think what really helped me, like I'd already kind of resolved my relationship with food a while ago, but what helps make sense of it for clients was when I had my son, I was like, if you're making formula for a baby, you measure it out. 'Cause like they need this amount. Like you're not weird about it. And when you make food for your baby, like you start them weaning or whatever, you look up everything. You're like, right, they need to have like this much protein, or they're like, well, I do because I'm a geek about it. Yeah. But you know, there's like all this information, and all of these healthcare providers are saying like, you must keep a track on like what they're eating and how much of this they're having. But when we do it to ourselves, it's obsessive.
Yeah.
And like your mum might have done that for you, but you never have probably sat down and done it for yourself. So if you consider like doing it for your child as taking care of them because you want to make sure that they're being well nourished, it's the same for you.
Yeah. And I think sometimes other people look at this and go, well, I've got a friend who's never tracked calories and always been in shape. And it's like, okay, but like, how is that serving you? They might have been brought up with like a really good awareness around food, always told like when you finish, like as soon as you full stop eating, given like the right amount of portions, actually already developed all these like self-awareness and eating mindfully and just very conscious and have very active lifestyles. And yeah, they haven't got the same struggles that you have. So looking at them and saying, oh, well, that person has it so much easier, doesn't serve you when it comes to like the fact that you need to develop this skill of tracking food and having at its core, it's education and an awareness of food.
And if you actually change what you call it, don't call it like tracking my food, just call it like recording my food. Yeah. Or like choose a word that isn't triggering to you, because there's so much power in words. And if you've got like this negative connotation with it, find something that means like learning about what I'm putting in my body, because that's what it's down to.
We need to make a mental note. We're going to sex this up a little bit. You know what I mean? That's sex sells, doesn't it? And the importance of tracking accurately, I guess, just doesn't have that same. This mental note, we're fixing this. We're getting a punchier line. What Stacey said. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you can turn it on its head and like use it as a way to learn about everything that's going in your body, that helps you then think as well. Right, I need to know what's in my drinks. I need to know what's in my gummies. I need to know everything that goes in my mouth. And one of my favorite things to remind clients is it goes in your phone before it goes in your mouth.
Yes.
Because it is so easy to forget. Like even myself, I've been tracking my food recently, just like keep an eye on my protein levels. And the amount of times I've been like 2 hours later, oh yeah, I ate that like whole snack that I completely forgot to track. Yeah. And I'm quite aware of my food. Yeah. So if you don't put it in your phone before you put it in your mouth, it is like remarkable how much you could eat without realizing.
Yeah, especially for how like distracted we all are now. Like a lot of us work behind computers and are on our phones and are watching TV, and it's so easy when you're in that like mindless sort of place to not even realize like you put your hand in the pocket like 5 times or 10 times. So, you know, again, you're tracking before you eat is and tracking even like the day before.
And if you've got kids and you pick bits off their plates,
Oh, so they're
Like,
so easily done. Yeah.
If you're not going to go back and be like, well, I had 1/2 of a chicken nugget and 3 fries. Like, you're just not. So put it in before you have it, or even better, don't have it unless you're intending to have it.
Yeah, and we've had we made this video once, and we put food in the bin after, like, it was like 10% of the meal left, and we put it in the bin. Again, if you're full, you finished, you can put it away. You can, obviously people can save it as well if they've tracked it, but there's more people in the world are now dying from overeating than undereating. So, you know, people are like, oh, that's such a waste, and that's, you know, but like people can think that with like kids' foods or certain things, and it's like, is it a waste? You know what I mean? If it's stopping you from hitting your goals and you throw away a bit of your kids' food, or you throw away a little bit of your food, is it a waste, or is it actually helping you hit your goals because you're managing your calories better?
Yeah, 100%.
So again, just another reframe.
Also, life hack, get a dog.
Get a dog.
This helps me massively. Okay, so tracking, we've talked about tracking food. That's not the only thing you need to track in terms of a calorie deficit, because obviously we've talked about the fact that calorie deficit comes from both ends of the scale.
Yes.
So you also need to track your outputs. So we're talking your steps and we're talking your workouts.
Yeah.
Steps is an obvious one. Either use your watch, or like I just use my phone just to get a baseline. Obviously, I don't carry my phone every single where I go, but I know if I'm roughly at the average, then fine. So what can often happen if you are in a calorie deficit, your body naturally tries to conserve energy because it's super smart, and it thinks, oh, we save these energy stores for a rainy day. And so it will naturally make you do less without you realizing. So that's why it's super important to track your output. Make sure you are still getting the same amount of steps. And then when I say track your workouts, I don't mean, I did 3 a week. Like literally track what you're doing in them, because otherwise it can be very easy to coast. Again, when you're in a calorie deficit, workouts are going to feel harder because you are eating less energy. So if you don't keep an eye on it, you could end up like staying at the same effort level or output level in your workouts for weeks and weeks. And actually, if you want to see progress, you need to be doing more. You need to be lifting more, or more reps, or more weight, more intensity each time. So recording what you're doing in your workouts is really, really important as well.
Yeah. So you have, when you are in a calorie deficit, you have got excess body fat, which is stored energy. So like 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So you have got that energy there to be used while you're in a deficit. But yes, this can happen, and the fancy word of this is like metabolic adaptation or adaptive thermogenesis, and it just basically means that your body tries to get you to slow down to create like homeostasis in the body again, so things level back out. And if you are ever finding that you're hitting a weight loss plateau, doing that, like you can go and like, am I tracking my steps? Am I tracking my workouts? And often, a lot of time, people can go, oh, my steps have gone from 8,000 to 4,000 or 5,000. And I haven't really been working out that hard lately. I haven't really been tracking things. And again, your body's just trying to get you to balance the energy balance again, balance the scale back out. And this can be as much as like 500 to 800 calories, and how fast it happens to someone. It's like there's no studies or anything to show.
It depends
varies
completely, yeah.
But it typically will happen to people who have been in a calorie deficit for a really long period of time, or have had like a big weight loss goal to hit. So, you know, sometimes when people have got like 40, 50, 100 pounds to lose, sometimes people take breaks, and it just allows some of these internal systems that we've got to kind of reset. And even from a mental standpoint, again, reset and kind of go back into it fresh. But again, just something, it's the inputs and outputs, and it's just something that you want to be really aware of.
And it's another one of those things that makes you in control. So you're not like, I'm doing everything the same and it's not working anymore. If you are tracking everything, you can objectively see if you are doing everything the same. And as we come back to like the whole principle of it, it's quite unlikely that you're doing exactly everything the same and it's not working anymore.
And again, just taking it back to money and finances, if your boss just started paying you £100 a month less, £200 a month less, you think you'd want to go and have a conversation with them? Like, hey, why am I getting paid less? You know what I mean? Like you'd be aware of that straight away. So if you just stop burning as many calories, like if you don't have the awareness because you're not looking at the data, then you don't even know. It's like your bosses just start paying you less and you're unaware of it.
Yeah.
But if you were like, hey, I'll look at my bank account once a month and I see if I'm getting paid the right amount, you would know the second it happens.
Yeah.
So again, it's just allowing you to be empowered by data.
Definitely. So it's all in theory, quite logical, practical. What about tips for making it easy to put into practice? Because the theory is one thing, right? But we all know actually doing it is the tough bit.
Yes, knowing what to do and actually doing it is very different. A lot of people would say like, oh, I know how to make $1 million, but like actually going and making, like not like some people are like, oh, well, you just make this amount of money times this, and you get there, you know, like doing it is very different. And it's the same with weight loss and so many other things of life. That is where I'd say coaching is extremely powerful, is that it, like, you know, you know what to do, or might think you know what to do, but then having somebody that can actually help you get into the doing and then be consistent with it is absolutely huge. But tips to really help, getting enough sleep. We're going to talk about the big rocks as always. Getting enough sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night. Or just and trying to improve the quality of your sleep as well. So that can be like minimizing caffeine earlier in the day, not being so stimulated before bed. Me and Steph have just, I don't know why we haven't done this a long time ago, we've actually put our phones on the dressing table in front of it.
Yeah.
So we now never get into bed or not with our phones. And it's just like the alarm's still on there and the whoop wakes us up, which is just being like, sometimes it'd be like 15 to 40 minutes just like gone in bed on the phone. And like, you know, if you read in bed, you start falling asleep. But if you're like scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or something, you're just like wired.
It's so bad for your like sleep cycles.
Yeah, and that plays it. You know, everyone knows how different you feel from a great night's sleep versus an awful night's sleep or not getting enough sleep. So sleep's huge. Drinking enough water is going to be a big one. 2 to 3 liters a day, which is like 60 to 100 ounces. Again, makes a significant difference. A lot of people are overeating on food because food has water in it. When you actually just dehydrated, most are chronically dehydrated, so drinking enough water. Whole foods, which is what we've touched on. Again, minimum 80% of your diet at least. Protein. We say 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. You can get your protein goals on our calorie calculator. Some people see this and like 120 grams of protein. How on earth am I going to eat that in a day? Just break it down. 3 meals of 40 grams, or you know, get 100 grams with 3 meals and then have a 20-gram snack. It can and is done by many people. Like you can definitely do it too. It just is going to be maybe a slightly different way of eating. And then fiber. Probably at least 30 grams of fiber, I would say, for most people. I used to be more like 10 to 15 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. I think even if you're on a lower calorie goal, like 11, 1,200 calories, even 1,000 calories,
it's not enough.
If you got 30 grams of fiber in your diet, it's still, it's just going to mean that 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories are just going to feel so much more filling because you're getting fiber in your diet.
It's also, you know, health-wise, 25 to 30 grams is like the minimum recommended for women as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just about feeling full; it's all the goodness, all the good things that it does for your gut bacteria and your gut health, and all of those implications for wider health.
Yeah, it makes you know. It makes just the whole digestive process a hell of a lot easier for your body. And you can get into more of like the nuances if you are having gut issues with like soluble versus insoluble fiber. And if you're feeling like a little bit blocked up or you're going to toilet too much, you can start to change and manipulate that. But I think that's
a whole nother episode. And then in terms of making the output side easier, what would you say?
So I've just been in like London for the past couple of days. And like every day my steps are like 12 to 15,000 because no one drives anywhere. You just walk everywhere or you get the tube. And that's just because you're somewhere there. It's like city living and you've got to walk around all the time. And you can be like, oh, like, God, if I lived in London, I'd probably just do these steps all the time. And when I was in Australia in January, again, average steps was like 11.5 hours in the day versus at home, it's more like, I don't carry my phone. It's like 6 to 8. So I've probably got like another 1,500 to 2,000 on top of that if I did have my phone with me everywhere. But it just shows you like how your environment or what you choose to set up as your environment will dictate how easy or how difficult it is to hit your steps. And that's what you've just got to get curious about is like, what can I change in my lifestyle to just make it that like my default, like when I'm just, it doesn't matter how busy I am, I still hit like 8,000 steps a day or whatever that goal is for you. And a lot of the times people can make really like simple changes around the house, around their commute to work, what they do on their lunchtime, whether they have a walking treadmill, just like little things, and it just makes it very easy to hit that consistent steps. And
it's about habits, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about building those habits in and just making it just like it's your default. So because like that's, if you want to look at like what long-term weight maintenance is, it's about it not like if it just was hard all the time, people would not maintain the results. If you've just set it up in a way that's just like it's just what you do now, it's just easy, then you just do it. You don't even think about getting 8,000 steps. It's just how you live your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that. And then when it comes to getting the workouts in, everyone always says about like, you know, you want to make it fun, and if you can, and that's a real hack. You know what I mean? You go and play tennis for an hour, or you go and do something that's enjoyable with friends, like it does make the workouts go a hell of a lot faster. And then there's that other side of like, sometimes it does just suck and you don't want to do it, and you just got to be disciplined and get it done as well. But I think just like having that like non-negotiable mindset, for me, booking my workouts in, getting them done in the morning have been great hacks for me to stay consistent.
Yeah, I think actually playing around with different workout times is a big one for a lot of people, because a lot of people that I've worked with are very much in the mindset of like, I go to the gym after work, but 3 times out of 4 work runs over, or they're knackered at the end of the day, or whatever happens and they don't go. So changing it to a morning workout feels like a horrible change to their life, and there's a lot of resistance. And I was that person once upon a time, but I now know like I will just do it in the morning, and it will just be done. And it's one less thing like weighing on me through the day, like I've got to do this. It doesn't even feel like I've got to do this when I get up and do it. I just get up and do it. So you don't have all day to try and talk yourself out of it. If
I
you
hate
are
that as well. Like that was so exhausting for me. Just that like internal chatter all day of like, am I going to go to the gym? Work's really busy. I've got this to do. I need to get here. I need to. I'm like, am I going to go? I'm just like the fighting of it all day. Like when I'd have free space, I'm like, am I or am I not going to go? And then when it's just like I get up and just autopilot go and do it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And you have so much more energy for the day.
Yeah. So finding something that you enjoy to do, but also finding a time when you're actually going to do it will be helpful. And when it comes to doing things you enjoy, obviously there are certain exercise modalities that are more effective when it comes to calorie burn. So if you love Pilates, amazing, definitely do it. It's probably not going to contribute that much to your calorie goal though.
Yeah.
So you also need to balance that out with finding something else that's a bit more active that you do enjoy as well. So if maybe you do Pilates twice a week, maybe do a strength workout that you don't love as much, but you can find a way of doing it that you do enjoy, put some music on that you like, find a follow along one that you like, whatever. But you need to kind of find that balance.
Yeah. And you just have to like reframe that. Like even if you don't absolutely love doing strength training, you'll likely start to love it, enjoy it a bit more once you get better at it.
Yeah.
That's one side of it. And then 2, if you kind of just reframe like what strength training is going to do for you, it's going to strengthen your bones, it's going to put more muscle on you, it's going to make you more metabolically active, it's going to mean that you
get to eat more.
You're going to get to eat more, you're going to have a higher quality of life as you age. Going through menopause is going to be easier because you've got more muscle and you burn more calories. Like it's just like, there's just a long list of reasons why strength training is absolutely amazing. So even if you don't like it in the beginning, just being able to just reframe it back to that why of like, this is, and even like doing Pilates or playing a sport, doing strength training, having more muscle is just going to benefit all of those things that you enjoy. Yeah. So just super important to keep in mind.
And then in terms of mindset, when it comes to staying with a calorie deficit, I think the biggest thing is just adjusting to a long-term mindset. Yeah. Not like letting go of that like quick fix, I'm on a diet headspace, and thinking, right, I am managing my energy input and output, and I'm finding ways to change my life so that I can do this for the long game. Yeah.
It's a lot of the time when you speak to some clients and they're like maybe freaking out a little bit about like how much weight they've lost, or they've lost like 5 pounds in a month and they like expected to lose maybe way more. It is just a case of just like, you got to be patient, you got to flex that patience muscle and just keep staying consistent. 5 pounds a month over a year is 60 pounds. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like what's that, 25, 30 kilos. So it's so considerable. And you know, like as I said a little bit earlier in this podcast, it's like fast is relative. If you've done 10 pounds a month, 15 pounds a month before in the past, but now you're on another weight loss journey because it didn't work, like that wasn't fast. That actually failed. You ended up back at square one, if not in a worse place sometimes. So reframing that and having the mindset of, you know, we say to clients all the time, it's very philosophical of just like, get 1% better. You get 1% better every day for a year, you get 37 times better. And if you do that with your education around nutrition, because we're going to sex up accurate tracking for something else, but yeah, education around food and tracking food and understanding around food, how to train, how to move, your self-awareness, you're 37 times better at all that over a year and stay consistent, you're going to be in a phenomenally different place. And you almost can't not win if you have that growth mindset and you put that patience in practice and just keep going at it.
Yeah. Although my next point is that's a long time.
It is.
And what happens if it stops working? Because there will probably be a point if you're on a long-term weight loss journey, 7 months in or whatever, things slow down, you reach a plateau. What happens?
Yeah, so there's two sides to this. There's the physiological side, which is what we talked about before, which is like metabolic adaptation and adaptive thermogenesis, your body trying to get you to slow down so you burn fewer calories. I think that's one part, but I'd say on a ratio that's about 10% of the time. I'd say the 90% of the time is that people's whys have changed. So if you've got like 50 pounds to lose and you've lost 40 and you're in this like last 10 pounds, like when you felt 50 pounds overweight, you probably had a deep desire to change. Like you had like a real big why, like the necessity was high. Like I need to sort my shit out and get this done. When you get down to that like last 10 pounds and it's been like 7 months or a year or whatever else, it can feel very difficult to keep digging deep to take those steps. But like this is, it's a part where if anyone is at this point or getting to this point, I would say like to take note of the most, because the amount of people I've seen get stuck in that last 5 to 10 pounds and then be stuck there for years and always want a bit more but not ever felt done is being like...
And just be actually more frustrated because they're still putting in effort but they're not getting back results.
Yeah, and it feels so much harder to do.
Yeah.
So just getting really clear on like the why and the goal and really tunnel vision and pushing through to get to where you want to be is very, very important. And often with that is like you just need to come back and get like a really strong why. You need to be like, why do I want to get to this goal? What's it important for? You know, why am I doing this? And just keep seeing it as a season to kind of do the necessary actions and get to where you need to be.
I've had so many like honest conversations with clients when they've got to that point and they're like, yeah, I don't really care that much anymore.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you're in a healthy weight range and you feel good and you don't care about that number anymore, great. Then we're done. Yeah. We're totally done. Yeah. But if you haven't reached that point and you just lost a bit of motivation and it's hard because you've been doing it for 7 months and you just haven't got that like deep fire anymore, but you still want it, that's a different ball game.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you have to have that really honest conversation, and a coach can be super helpful to ask the questions that you might avoid yourself if you're just thinking about it yourself, or you probably don't even sit there and ask yourself questions.
Yeah.
Journaling's really good for this. So if you're frustrated with your outputs, like sit down and be really honest. What are my inputs? Am I putting in the effort that I knew it took in week 1 to get the output that I wanted? Am I doing the same thing in week 32 or whatever it is? Yes or no? Because most of the time, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to be losing that weight.
Yep.
And yes, the kind of goalposts might have moved. So the amount of activity that you needed to do might change. The amount of food that you need to eat might have changed. So it's not necessarily that everything is static and everything has to be exactly the same to get the same output, but you need to be able to play that game of like rebalancing the ins and the outs.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, again, just being curious about that, but getting clear on what the why is. For some people though, like that's a really good point, is people can go like, oh, I had this weight number in my mind of like, I need to get to this point. And then you get to a point where you're like 10 pounds away from that and you're like, you know what, I feel great. I look great, feel great. Everything fits well. I've got great energy. It's like, well, that's the goal then. You know, if you feel healthy, you're at a healthy weight, like that's the goal, and just reframing it, because it's just a number. Like the amount of people are like, oh, I need to be 140 pounds or I need to be this amount of weight.
It's
like,
always a round number. It's never 132.6.
No, exactly. Yeah. And just kind of let it go on that. And also just sometimes.
I actually got to admit, I always had this thing in my head of like, I want to be 60 kilos. I don't know why. Yeah. Because it was just a round number. And then I was like, I'm 61 and I feel great. Why? And like for probably about 6 months, I was like trying to be 60 kilos.
Yeah.
I don't really care. Yeah. Like it wouldn't have changed my life in any way to be 1 kilo lighter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, just sometimes we can have this like, well, I was that weight when I was in school. I was that weight before I had a baby. And it's like, yeah, but maybe that was like 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And now you're a weight that's maybe a little bit more than that, but maybe you've got more muscle or maybe your body's changed. And if you feel great and you look great and you're at a healthy weight, then that's it. Like that's the healthiest weight for you. That's what I always come back to. It's not like some arbitrary number. It's where you look your best, you feel your best, and you are your healthiest on paper. And
your lifestyle makes you happy.
Exactly.
Because also there's something to consider with, to get super lean also leads to a different lifestyle to stay super lean.
Oh, it's miserable. I mean, I've done it. I've been like super lean, and it's like all your hormones just like completely out of whack. Like it tanks your testosterone levels as a guy, and you're just like hungry.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because if you look at some of the other like weight loss accounts or whatever online, and their before and afters are like really extreme, and like their after pictures are really lean and muscular and like that bikini body in inverted commas. and then you look at our clients who look amazing, but they're very normal, healthy, like in shape at the end of their journeys, it's because of that mindset thing. It's like, we're not trying to get you to go on a stage. We're trying to get you to feel your absolute best. Live a life that makes you happy. Eat the foods that you actually want to eat. Like, have the energy to do all the things you want to do and feel good in your clothes. None of that requires being at like 16% body fat.
Yeah, and also just like FYI, anyone who goes on stage at that and is that lean is not healthy. Like, that's not actually a healthy endeavor to go down. For a lot of guys, they're taking performance enhancing drugs and getting down to like dangerously low body fat levels, like 3-4%, where you see them pass out on stage and it can kill them. They're massively dehydrated. They look the best on stage. They feel the worst.
Inverted commas, best.
They look the best, but they feel the worst. For a lot of women who do that, like, it's just rife with people developing eating disorders. You lose your period, and you feel horrendous and probably thinking about food all the time, because, again, for women to get that lean, it's super low calories, super high cardio, thinking about food all the time. So it's wild that these are like some of the glamified photos online, even though those people are definitely not like embodying health. Like a healthy mindset, or even to a degree a healthy body. Now, somebody who's like an athlete, you know, and looks great, you probably actually see they probably might have like abs and everything else, but they're probably carrying a bit more weight or a little bit more body fat. But even still, even like a lot of professional women who are athletes do not have a period. Like, their body is under,
because they're just using so much energy.
Yeah, their body is under so much stress, and even if they are eating a lot of calories, like there's a tax to it in some other ways.
Yeah. So in summary, if it stops working, it's always a good time to reflect on what are your goals, what is your why, because also at the beginning of a weight loss journey, there might be quite a negative driver. There might be like, you feel negatively about yourself and you want to use that to fire you and to take action. But if you get to a point where actually you feel pretty good, you maybe need to think of another why if you do still want to make progress. So maybe it shifts to being like, okay, it's not about me looking a certain way anymore. It's about my health markers being better, or it's about me being able to climb that mountain with my kids, or whatever it is. It's not from the same place. And if you're trying to tap into the same motivators, it's just not going to work because they're not there. So if it stops working, just kind of give yourself the space to go back to the drawing board and ask some questions. What do I want to even achieve? Why do I want to do it? Am I tracking everything, inputs and outputs? Do I need to adjust the inputs and the outputs to recreate a calorie deficit? And then go at it if you want to.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Okay.
How long should someone stay in a calorie deficit?
There's no one size fits all answer here. It's relevant to that person. I would say until you get to your goal, but like what that looks like can be individual to you. So for some people, they might do 6 months of a calorie deficit and then do a couple of months off and then do another 6 months and get there. For some people, they can just do it straight the way through. And often with the guidance of a coach, that can be easier to achieve. But again, there's not a non-judgmental space from our end, at least, of like how long it should take. People will definitely say like it should be like this, or it should. I'm very mindful of anyone who says shoulds. I feel like it takes as long as it needs to take. Now, obviously, if there's other pressing matters like health issues, they become big drivers and motivators anyway. But like, yeah, there was. If you want to talk about the absolute extreme of what somebody done, Simon might be able to pull this up. The guy who fasted for like a year and a half. He didn't eat any calories. He was like medically supervised. I think they gave him like.
Oh, he had supplements.
I think they went and gave him like IV drips or supplements, but he basically just had water for like a year and a half and like lost a ridiculous amount of weight. And then all his health markers are in a healthier place. That's the most extreme way of doing absolutely anything that we've spoken about today.
Because the point is, if you have got extra fat stores, you aren't going to run out of energy.
Yeah, how do you say his name?
Angus Barbieri was a Scottish man who fasted for 382 days in the 60s. Okay. He lived on tea, coffee, sparkling water and vitamins. Yeah. Okay then. But he was under medical supervision.
He lost 276 pounds, which is 125 kilos, and set a record for the length of a fast.
Yeah. So again, he wasn't going to die because he had 125 kilos of extra fat
to lose.
Yeah. You're not going to suggest doing that if you only weigh 100. I mean, well, I don't know, 50 kilos in the first place.
Yeah.
But the point is, there's no like black and white answer of you can only be in a calorie deficit for 6 months or it'll ruin your metabolism.
Yeah.
It is completely up to you, and it depends on how your body's reacting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff, I know a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about today, that the bedrocks of health and the bedrocks of losing weight, you know, and could I just keep saying it, like 80% of your diet come from whole minimally processed foods, doing strength training, getting enough protein, prioritizing your sleep. Like when you're doing a lot of this stuff, you will just default either lose weight or start to maintain a healthier weight. And just overall feel better.
Yeah.
So, you know, like a lot of the stuff that we've spoke about today will just get you into an overall healthier place, given that you are managing your calories as well.
And that's the end goal, right? So it's not to be in a calorie deficit forever. And I think sometimes if someone's been struggling with their weight for a long time or going on diet after diet after diet, this like mecca of not being on a diet or being at calorie maintenance doesn't seem like a real place, but that is the end goal for your health and for your sanity, is to get to weight maintenance and not be in a deficit. The healthiest place is to be in weight maintenance.
Yes, at a healthy weight.
Yes, at a healthy weight where you're eating the same amount as you're burning and you're eating all these whole foods that you've talked about, you're getting activity. Like that lifestyle is the end point, the mecca. And getting there in a sustainable way means that maintaining that once you get there will feel easier. If that means it takes a longer time, then like you said earlier, what's the actual goal here? Is it to lose a bunch of weight super quick, or is it to reach that end state at some point? Because
that's like, no matter what age you are now, when you get to that point, that's where you're going to stay for basically the rest of your life, unless you put on like a lot of muscle, which doesn't happen fast. Like weight maintenance is the goal for the rest of your life. So taking the time to invest in these skills and habits and learn this and master this will just enrich your life in every way possible for the rest of your life. And that's the mecca, that's the goal to get to. Because who wants to be on, and we've had clients start in their 70s for our coaching, and it's like they've been on that roller coaster till they were 70. And I am so in awe that they are still wanting to go and fix this at that, like what a mindset to have. To just, but like at the same time, I'm also like extremely saddened that it's been 70 years of that going on. So really like looking at this and being like a year or 2 years to really figure this out, it's like, there's a small price to pay. Like in the grand scheme, like think about how much time people put in to get like a degree or, you know, higher education, all this stuff. Like this is higher education in you. You know, learning about you and how you work and how you tick, so you can be in the healthiest place possible, because it will enrich, like becoming the healthiest version, you will just enrich every part of your life. Like there's just no doubt about it. It'll enrich your life, your partner's life, your kid's life. You'll feel better, you'll look better, you'll have more energy. Like I don't really think you can put a price on the time it's going to take.
Definitely. And this is where to start, like understanding your food and your activity. Understanding your energy balance is definitely the right place to start. So if you want to go and figure out your calories and your protein, just go to bodysmartfitness.com. We've got a calorie quiz on there. You can click on it for free. And if you feel like actually this sounds like really simple in theory, but tough in practice, then obviously we do have our one-on-one coaching program, which we will walk you through every single step. We will make it feel easy. And this will be literally the end goal, that mecca I talked about, is within your sights.
Nice. Awesome. Great sell.
It's a little bit of a long one, but I thought it was full of value.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like a very... it's like a very... You know, like because
Hopefully you've learned a few tips and tricks there, and it's an essential skill to understand how a calorie deficit works if you want to lose weight. Another skill you definitely want to learn is how to make peace with the scales, because it can make or break your day when you're on a weight loss journey. Lucky for you, we have a whole podcast episode on this, so go and search out podcast episode number 76, Making Peace with the Scales.